He convinced me I was worth nothing without him. He deleted all my friends, blocked numbers, and reduced me to a shadow of my former self. I lived in constant fear and guilt until one day I finally realized I either had to stay in that hell or lose myself forever. I left. With no money, no support, and no faith in my own strength. But 6 months later, he wrote, "I was wrong. Come back." The thing is, I'm a completely different person now. And he is the one standing before a closed door. My name is Michelle, and I'm 26. I lived in a small town in Oregon, working in a bookstore and dreaming of my own little business, a coffee shop with a book nook. I was never the type to seek attention. On the contrary, I was quiet, calm, and a little naive. That's probably why Adam noticed me, an older, self-assured man with that dangerous charisma that makes girls believe his every word. We met at my colleague's birthday party. He was a friend of her husband. I remember him sitting next to me and saying, "You're not like the others. Your eyes don't lie." It sounded strangely sincere. And at the time, I didn't realize it would be the start of a story that would break me and then make me stronger. He seemed like a real man, confident, decisive, the kind who knows what he wants. After a few dates, I felt like I had finally found security. He opened doors for me, checked if I got home safely, and brought me coffee with my favorite vanilla syrup. "You deserve a man who will take care of you," he'd say. And I believed him. I didn't know that in a few short months, the word care would morph into control. At first, everything felt like genuine concern. Adam always asked who I was spending time with, whether I had made it home, or if I was late back from work. He would say, "I'm just worried about you. There are so many dangers out there." I actually liked that someone cared so much. After years of loneliness, it felt warm. But over time, his concern started to choke me. First, he asked me not to go to parties without him, because there are plenty of men who might misunderstand your kindness. Then he told me my friends were a bad influence, constantly encouraging my independence. "They're jealous, Michelle. You have me, and they are alone. Don't listen to them." He asked me to delete a few contacts for peace of mind, then took my phone to set up protection, and when he returned it, some numbers were gone. When I asked him why, he just sighed, "You just don't understand how the world works. I simply want to protect you. I am your only friend, your support. Everyone else is just using you." Once, he even showed up at my work just to check if I was really on shift. I felt awkward as my colleagues stared in surprise. But when I told him it upset me, he got offended. "I just wanted to see you. Are you already tired of me?" And that was the first time I apologized for something that wasn't my fault. From that day on, his control only escalated. He wanted to know what I ate, where I went, and who I spoke to. Even my clothes began to bother him. "You look too available. Other men will look at you. Do you want to make me jealous?" I started dressing more conservatively. I deleted Instagram. I stopped messaging my friends. Adam often repeated, "You're not like the others. They are careless. You are mine." Back then, those words felt like affection. Now I know they were shackles. Eventually, his care turned into daily monitoring. Every word, gesture, even a glance began to irritate him. If I laughed, he'd ask, "What's so funny? Are you mocking me?" If I was silent, he'd say, "Oh, you're offended again. Maybe try thinking like an adult woman." He had a way of making me feel guilty even when I was right. After every fight, it was always me who apologized. He conditioned me to believe I was overreacting, making up problems, making a mountain out of a molehill. One evening, when I finally told him that his insults hurt me, he laughed and responded, "You are hysterical, Michelle. You're always creating drama. You're inadequate." That word, hysterical, hit me like a slap. After that night, I was afraid to raise my voice. He expertly twisted reality. When I cried, he said I was manipulating. When I stayed silent, he called me selfish. When I tried to explain, he would turn away and mutter, "I don't have time for these hysterics." Once, after a particularly bad incident, he turned off the light, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "Without me, you are nobody. You can't handle anything. No one needs you but me." I remember standing by the window and feeling like everything around me was made of glass. One step, and it would all shatter. He had taught me to doubt myself so thoroughly that I started to believe maybe it really was all my fault. I stopped painting, though it had been my favorite hobby. I stopped looking in the mirror because I didn't recognize the girl with the vacant eyes. It seemed I had lost not just my friends, but my own voice. And only later did I understand it wasn't a romance, it was a prison, and he had hidden the keys in my fear. I didn't even notice when I was left utterly alone. My phone used to hum with messages, friends, colleagues, mom. Then silence. A thick, suffocating silence. One day, I simply realized that no one was writing anymore. Because everyone who tried only got a cold or rude response, sent from my name. Later, I accidentally discovered that Adam had been answering some messages on my phone himself. Sorry, Michelle is busy right now. She doesn't want to maintain this contact anymore. Sometimes he would just block people without telling me. When I asked why, he said, "They don't understand you. They hold you back. You and I are all you need." He convinced me to quit my job at the bookstore. It's a dead end. You can stay home. I'll provide for you. Normal women shouldn't have to slog to work every day. I agreed. And that's when I first felt the doors lock behind me. He took my phone for night mode, had access to my banking app in case I needed help with bills. When I bought myself a new dress, he looked at it and said, "And who did you buy it for? Do you want someone else to see you?" He even controlled what I ate. When I reached for ice cream, he said, "You don't want to look like a fattened mouse, do you? I like you slim." I laughed then, probably so I wouldn't cry. One day, I overheard him talking on the phone. The voice was soft, gentle, nothing like the way he spoke to me. I stood in the hallway, listening to him call someone sweetheart and beauty. When I walked into the room, he hung up and calmly said, "Are you jealous of a colleague? That's ridiculous. It's all because of your insecurity. That's why I don't want you talking to others. They just make you more unstable." I knew he was lying. But I was so broken that I lacked the strength to prove the truth, even to myself. That evening, I finally broke. We were driving home after dinner with his colleagues. He had been criticizing me all night, the way I sat, the way I laughed, the way I talked. When I mentioned I missed a former bookstore colleague, he smiled that cold, familiar smile and whispered, "Does she know you don't work anymore? That you're dependent on me? Do you think she'd be interested in talking to a failure?" I stayed silent. But something cracked inside. Not loudly, almost imperceptibly, like a bone breaking in my heart. When we got to the apartment, I went inside, and he lingered in the doorway. And, as if to deliver the final blow, he said, "No one needs you, Michelle. Without me, you'll disappear. You're too weak to live alone." Those words echoed in my head as I washed my hands, brushed my hair, and looked in the mirror. And then, for the first time, I didn't cry. I just looked at my reflection and whispered, "But what if I'm not?" I didn't sleep that night. I opened an old laptop he considered broken, which I knew how to fix. I found ads for side jobs, cleaning offices, helping at the library. I started writing a resume, created a new email, and a new page he couldn't access. The next day, while he was at work, I went to the bank and opened my own account. I found a room to rent through a work acquaintance, secretly, using a friend's phone. Every step felt terrifying. Every move felt like a betrayal. But every action gave me a breath of air. I started hiding small amounts of money, change from purchases, small bills he wouldn't notice. I bought a small backpack and packed only the bare essentials: documents, a charger, an old photo with my mother, a notebook, and a small bottle of perfume he had banned too sweet. It attracts attention. In the evenings, while he watched TV, I repeated mentally, "I can do this. I won't be lost. I can do this." He, of course, noticed the change. He became nervous, suspicious. "You're acting strange, Michelle. Are you hiding something?" I smiled, just tired. In reality, I was packing my courage, not my belongings. I left the house without a suitcase, just my backpack. It was cold and dark, but inside, it was quiet. No one was screaming, controlling, or demanding to know where I had been. The first few nights I stayed with a friend, then I rented a tiny room above an old coffee shop. I did every kind of job: cleaning, serving coffee, delivering newspapers. It was hard, but every morning when I woke up, it was easier to breathe. I'm still here, I told myself in the mirror. And I didn't disappear. In the evenings, I wrote in my notebook, read books on psychology, and learned to talk to people again. Sometimes I cried, but now those tears were a release, not despair. A few months passed, and I first caught myself thinking, I am not afraid. I'm not afraid he will call. I'm not afraid to be alone. My freedom didn't yet smell like confidence, but it already tasted like life. More months passed. I was working in a small flower shop, just helping with bouquets, delivering orders. I was hired unofficially, but I didn't care. I felt like I was living again. One day, the owner, old Mrs. Hazel, asked me to stay late. We were drinking tea among the vases when she suddenly said, "You have kind hands, Michelle. The flowers listen to you. Do you want to learn how to do arrangements professionally?" That's how I started creating bouquets, simple at first, then complex, full of symbolism. I poured into them what I couldn't say in words: pain, forgiveness, strength. And people felt it. One day, a woman who had gone through a divorce came into the shop and said, "Your flowers are like a gulp of peace. It's like they understand." Mrs. Hazel smiled because they were made by a woman who survived. From that day on, I knew I wasn't just working. I was creating beauty from what had once broken me. I saved enough money to rent a small corner in the same shop. Now my bouquets had their own name, Wild Bloom. Because that's exactly how I felt: wild, alive, free. It happened unexpectedly. It was a typical Saturday morning, and I was delivering wedding bouquets downtown. My uniform was dusty with pollen. My hands were a little scratched, but my heart was calm. I felt whole. As I entered the hotel to deliver the flowers to the bride, someone called out my name loudly, "Michelle." I turned around and saw Adam. His face had changed. His eyes were tired. His hair was shorter. His shirt wasn't as impeccably pressed as it used to be. He stood with a bag in his hands, looking as if he couldn't believe he was seeing me. "Is that really you?" he whispered. I've been looking for you." I felt my heart skip a beat, but this time not from fear, from the sheer realization that he no longer had any power over me. I calmly placed the box of flowers on the table and said, "Yes, it's me." He took a step forward. "I've done a lot of thinking. I was wrong. Life without you has become empty. I made mistakes. Can we talk?" His voice was shaky, but it still held that same hint of self-assurance that once made me doubt myself. Only now, it had no effect on me. "I'm sorry, Adam. I have work right now," I replied calmly. "The wedding is waiting." He looked bewildered, as if he couldn't grasp why I didn't stop, didn't cry, and didn't demand explanations. And I simply walked past him. And for the first time in years, I felt free, not just in body, but in soul. A few days later, he came to the shop. He stood by the door while I finished an order. In his hands, a bouquet of white lilies. Ironic. He once forbade me from buying flowers, saying they were a waste of money. "I didn't mean to frighten you, Michelle," he said quietly. "I just wanted to talk." I nodded, though inside there was only a cold, calm sea. "Go ahead." He started talking quickly, as if afraid I would disappear again, just as I had before. "I ruined everything. I didn't know what I was doing. Everything fell apart without you. I thought you really wouldn't survive without me, but it seems I can't survive without you now." Once, those words would have shattered me. Now, they sounded like an echo from the past. I smiled, not mockingly, but with a touch of sadness. "You were right, Adam. Without you, I truly wasn't lost." He took a step forward, as if to touch my hand, but I stepped back. "I found myself. And, I had the courage not only to leave you, but also not to come back." His eyes darkened, and in them flickered the same helplessness that had once been mine. I took off my apron, looked at him one last time, and said, "You once loved having control. Now, just let go. We are both free." And I left. Easily. Without looking back. Through the window glass, I saw my reflection, calm, confident, with a smile. A woman who is no longer afraid.